Hi, everyone, and welcome to your next session. Hope you all are having a great conference, and we're looking forward to talking to you about our session here. The title is, of course, Reshaping Learning for the New Normal. And I know you've obviously thought about this for the last couple of years, first figuring out what the new normal is going to be, and then thinking about learning. We're going to provide a new flavor to that with thinking about the new normal and learning with a digital adoption solution or the guidance around that. So there's two of us that are going to present to you, and we want to make this as interactive as possible. So post your questions in the Q&A, and we'll take them during the session so that it's nice and interactive there. So first, I'll ask my esteemed co-presenter to present herself. Amy?
Hi, thank you very much and welcome everybody. My name is Amy Bolt and I am an Associate Director of Corporate Learning for Century Insurance. Our learning organization within Century is called Century University, and you'll hear me refer to Century U throughout the presentation and throughout the pieces that I'm responsible for. But I've been with Century for 24 years in the learning environment since 2008 for a pretty long time. Didn't go to school for insurance, went to school, got my degree in sports medicine, and somehow ended up here and loving what I'm doing. My responsibility is for our learning ecosystem and our technology, making sure that our folks have everything that they need to serve our associates.
Great, thanks, Amy. And my name's Vispi Davar. I'm with a company called WhatFix. We're one of the sponsors at the conference, and we provide a digital adoption solution that can help you reshape learning for the new normal. So I'll talk through an agenda really quickly and what we're trying to cover here. So firstly, and really important, there's a paradigm shift. We're going to explain why that's happening and what's happening exactly, not just related to a new normal, but related to this proliferation of digital transformation and software in all enterprises. Then Amy's going to talk about adaptation to transformation and also reshaping learning for the new normal. I'll come back and talk a little bit about the role of DAP. DAP is the digital adoption platform. And then Amy will close it out with talking about Sentry and what they've done to reshape the new normal there. So I'll start a little bit with what's this paradigm shift that's occurring in corporate learning. And there's a digital transformation. There's some great articles with great titles that are very memorable. There's one that says, "Software eats the world." And I'm reminded of that. And the reality is, almost anything we do in a non-software environment can be done with software. And even what we're doing today with basic software, often in sheets and documents, etc., can be done with a customized application. So what that means is a lot of big transformation projects, whether they're in the software category, in data centers, or in devices. And what analysts have got wrong every year, admittedly, is that the actual growth in spending far exceeds what they had anticipated. The 2020 growth was a little bit subdued, obviously, but then 2021, as we all know, the growth in all of these systems and the purchase of all of these systems increased rapidly. Along with it, change management, digital transformation projects, etc. And then in 2022, again, there's an estimate, but again, we expect that to be beaten based on what we've seen. So if you just isolate the enterprise software piece and you look at all these technologies that are coming in that you are responsible for in systems training for making sure everyone is aware and enabled on it, that proliferation it has its own little mini transformation going on. There's a lot of dated on-premise software that is all changing to the cloud. Typically, what we've seen is, on average, based on research, 1,000-employee company has almost 300 software applications. And we can attest to that. We're about 650 people, and we're almost at that number if you count everything everyone uses. And these could be applications that are purchased. They could be software products that are being built internally all the time. They could be user interfaces for existing products, business analytics tools, etc. The reality is training is needed on all of them to varied degrees. And that proliferation and that storm of software products is really meaningful. And it's too much to handle in the traditional ways of doing training. I'll talk a little bit about now what did COVID do to all of this. So the first thing it did was, which is really remarkable, how all of a sudden learning and development teams shifted with a flip of a switch when we all went home and figured out how to uh, train people remotely. CLBT, classroom based, instructor led in classroom, that all went away. And it became a major challenge, yet there was adaptation. Obviously, proliferation of video conferencing, etc., all helped. But if you look at this poll, which is a really good McKinsey poll, and it talks about the time required to respond to or implement changes, the expected versus the actual, and the number of days. So and they divide it up in two ways. One is they talk about the change for an organization, and then they talk about industry wide. So if you look at some key categories, the first one's of course really important, which is obviously there's an increase in remote work and an increase in collaboration, and the change associated with that due to systems, tools, personalities is all varied and obviously really high. But if you look at a few of the other ones, the increasing use of advanced technologies in operations, everyone wants to automate more and get more done through technology. You look at a few more as well. This massive migration of assets to the cloud, this we see very meaningfully. At WhatFix, we partner with a lot of the large systems integrators, and they talk about the largest software applications and shift to the cloud and how that's driving them and driving their large transformation projects, which again means more change management, more learning, more of that, all for learning and development systems training teams as well. So really major shift as well. And as we look at transformation and what's going to happen with transformation, we're going to find more and more that learning leaders are playing a really critical and strategic role, because all of these tools are coming in and change has to be accelerated so that it's done effectively. We'll talk a little bit more about the toll that the pandemic took and why that sort of increases even more the issues associated with difficulty in learning. So one is, of course, personally, there's a lot of job insecurity. People don't know what's going on in the home office. There's stress related to the pandemic, anxiety. What are we focusing on? What should we do? Most importantly, we can't ask someone next door how to go about something. It takes a call, it takes clicking on a link, it takes getting on a video call. Can you hear me? And then we're able to learn. That's not effective, and we can't go on like that even in the new normal. So if you look at sort of the results of that, is again the great resignation is part of it, employee burnout because we're always at our desks and we're trying to learn things, etc., on our own. And all of this adds to what our HR team calls, we've got to focus on the employee retention interview and employee retention processes, etc., as well. I'll cover a few more as well, like what's going to happen now. So there's all kinds of research and articles and what the new normal is going to be. I think there's very clear clarity that there will be for sure some kind of hybrid environment. That's clear as anything. What's not clear is what that percentage shift, etc., is going to be and how exactly learning will be affected. But it's clear that there will not be an attempt or a drive to go back to stress, CLBT, etc., all occurring for learning. There's one Fortune 500 customer that as soon as COVID hit and everyone went remote, they just said, we're going to change and retrain all our classroom-based trainers to be able to do remote technology training in a different way inside the application using chat tools, etc., and things like that. And this drove a lot of the training that could occur for this particular company. So the new normal is going to have people definitely hybrid in scheduling. How do we do training? Because training doesn't end with onboarding. You can easily say, hey, I'll get everyone in the office. We'll go through our onboarding and we'll be able to deal with it in a physical environment. That's not systems training. There are changes all the time. There's continuous training, etc., all needed. So it's going to be hard to go back to the existing environment that we had. So it's time for our first poll. My colleague's going to take care of it.
Here, I can read them for you. Is your organization working on a hybrid working model? 71%, yes, we're working on a hybrid model. 3%, we are back in our offices full-time. 27%, we're working remotely right now, not sure what lies ahead.
Yeah, really telling data. I'd say the last group will be it's a good proportion. It's a good chance it'll split in the same way the first two have. So hybrid is the new normal. It's attested, verified, etc. And one of the reasons it's not going away is corporations have found a way to be able to hire more people, help with getting people onboarded, etc. If you're open to having a hybrid model where people can be remote, etc. So it's no doubt it's not going away anytime. One more request for you, Amy. If you see any questions that come up, because I can't see them, please interrupt and we'll take them as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. And with this, I'll turn it over to you, Amy.
All right, so we're going to talk about what it looks like from going from adaptation to transformation. So when we look back at the last couple of years, it's really hard to imagine that anyone would look back on this with fondness and tranquility. But with every storm, there's that silver lining, right? So we know that out of chaos springs resilience, and that's what we're finding. We know that we were all pushed out of our comfort zones, both personally and professionally, and that often results in innovation and agility. We did what was necessary to ensure continuity, both personally and professionally, right? I mean, it didn't just affect our professional lives. But now we're starting to look ahead. What does that look like? How do we build a learning program that's effective for the workforce of the future? So the expectations for learning leaders certainly haven't gone down. What we're finding is that there's more expectations and more drive to get the learning program right. So Visby did a great job of talking about this, and we're not only expected to close those technology skill gaps, but we're also there for the essential skills or the soft skills. And one of the main ones is instilling resilience in the workforce to be able to adapt to a similar change of such massive scale in the future. We've been thrown into the unimaginable these last couple of years. I mean, I never would have thought that I would live through a pandemic where I'd be working at home for 2 years. The scope of that is really just unimaginable. But it makes me think about what is the future. How do we plan for what could be next? The LinkedIn Workforce Learning Report of 2021 has identified digital fluency and resilience as power skills of the year. So there's a buzz phrase for you, those power skills of the year. What do we need to be looking for and upskilling for? So being digitally fluent simply means that a learner has the technology skills to effectively operate in an increasingly digital world. This includes everything from understanding how to use Microsoft Office Suite to advanced artificial intelligence, and whether people realize it or not, that artificial intelligence is a part of our everyday lives. And we also know that knowledge builds resilience, which is required to cope with and adapt to change. It comes down to knowledge, preparation, and adaptation. So when we talk about the L&D priorities, along with attraction and retention is also reskilling and upskilling. I think the attraction and retention part is becoming more important. So let's talk quickly about that. So in the past, this might not have been a main focus for a learning organization. However, with the labor market as it is, how someone sees their onboarding experience and the development opportunities that they're offered are vital, and maybe the difference in hiring or retaining an employee. They complete or continually ask about the development and the career path, lateral and upward mobility. In interviewing candidates recently for an open position, I'm constantly asked, and I was in the past, but it's even a more directed conversation about how they're going to be onboarding, what are the development opportunities, what does the career pathing look like, and what do we have set up? And they don't want a vanilla answer. They want something specific. They want to know exactly what we've put in place to help them advance their careers. Brandon Hall's group, Brandon Hall Group's 2021 State of Learning Practices study found that the key learning priority for the next 12 months is creating a stronger link between learning and performance. So what they learn and how they perform. Delivering that personalization at enterprise scale is what solidifies this link. In fact, 93% of the companies strongly believe that personalized learning helps improve organizational performance and individual performance. That's a pretty heavy burden for learning organizations, but we're up to the task for sure. All right, so when we talk about reshaping learning for the new normal, I mean, 2 years ago, who would have thought would have been talking about the new normal and what that phrase means as well? When we think about reshaping learning for century, that started before the pandemic, but the pandemic certainly did escalate and move things forward in a much quicker manner than what we would have ever anticipated or ever expected. The pandemic certainly has shined a light very brightly on the need for more performance support. All right, we've got our second poll ready for you. How would you assess the results of remote training over the past 2 years? And Bianca, I'm still not able to see the results, so I'm going to have to ask you to step in and help us out with that.
Absolutely. Just waiting for the last few seconds.
Yep, thank you.
Let's see, we have 51% saying remote training has been more effective than in-person training, 28% saying remote training has been challenging, can't wait to get back in person, and 22% can't say.
I think that we'd find that those results are pretty indicative of, globally too. I think that the pandemic has really pushed us into the remote training, obviously, coming from an organization that was pretty conservative and loved the sit and get, loved the instructor-led training, didn't feel like we could be as effective in this remote environment, and we've proven them wrong. And I think that as we get better and better at this, that remote training is going to, people will understand that it can be more effective, and we'll see those numbers shift even more heavily to that remote training has been more effective than in-person training. What have you seen with your other customers?
Yeah, I was really interested in the results, and they're very telling. What we've seen is both one and two, and probably in the same proportion. And the ones I'll share the reasons that they've voted for one versus two, and that'd be great to hear from the audience in Q&A or in chat as to what's gone well if you voted one, and what hasn't gone well if you voted two. So what's gone well with one has been very basic logistics coordination, getting people to attend without any without a lot of physical requirements. So that's one. The second has been because of adoption of any tools. I mean, as basic as video conferencing, as much as providing in-app tools, etc., to help you and guide you in your moment of need, learning in the flow of work. Those that have adopted it have obviously found sort of good results, etc., associated with that. And then on the third one, on why it's been more effective, the third has been a little bit related to one, but the proliferation of learning content that can be provided remotely, either inside the application or through webinars and calls. That's much more. And in CLBT, they really struggle to do continuous training frequently enough. Whereas now, just like software is built in the software as a service format, where you have releases every week or every day if you need, this can be done with remote learning. Is you can not just train remotely, but change users' behavior remotely as well. And it could be someone who's trained, but you want to change a behavior inside a technology, have them sell one product in their Salesforce versus another, or have them complete their performance reviews in their HR system. All of that can be done remotely as well. And lastly, on the second one, what has not worked out. So sometimes when, in technologies where the use of that technology is very, very complex, and it literally requires a one-on-one trainer to learner sort of ratio. And that person has to be there to sort of show to you some of those very heavy manufacturing softwares and supply chain in certain industries, etc. That's been a challenge a little bit over there. And then again, adopting more tools, etc., to help and to be able to do bite-sized learning.
Great. Those are really great insights. And I'll tell you from a budgetary standpoint, having things be remote has really helped our budget in that regard too. It's really cut down on our travel budgets and the hotels, and so that's been a perk for us in that regard. Although there are definitely people that miss being here in person, and there's something to be said for that as well.
Yeah. So I'll be honest, it's slightly different topic, but the reason hybrid is so important is we do need that physical connection for learning and for life in general. I mean, we need that. So I'm very excited about hybrid. It's the perfect model, yet too much of in-person. Also, you can't get things done fast enough, etc. Too many meetings. So that combination is going to be really well sort of laid out.
It will, and it will be a transition. You know, we talk as an organization about what the transition. This is a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's important. We talked about that transition of going home and everybody getting their stuff together, and we're sitting at home. Now we're talking about what that transition looks like as we get back to the office and what that means and how we help people through that. And the learning organization is a big part of that as well.
Yeah, there are some great questions, and I found a way to see them while presenting. So the
Great.
first one is DAP is what again? Digital Adoption Platform, and we're going to tell you a little bit more in the subsequent sections. Can LMS act as a digital adoption platform? Not quite, but it can get people. One of Amy's bullet points was learning with testing, learning with that. And when you adopt that approach, which is the classic approach to learn, you can't teach someone without testing and seeing how well, then an LMS can come in to help. But it is separate outside the application, etc. Digital adoption platforms are different. I've been talking to my leadership about DAP, but due to high cost, I'm not able to convince them easily. You have a one slide as an elevator pitch. Yes. So Miriam, depending on what your use case is, so basic onboarding training, then you look at support tickets coming in for the application and reducing that. So we have a value engineering team, for example, that will come in, look at your problem statement, and then help you create that business case for it as well. So we'll make sure we connect with you offline as well. Ayushi, you've described perfectly what a digital adoption platform is. Thank you. No, a great one from Adrian. This is awesome. Do you think that a single training will address the different audiences, even if presented in different modalities? Or will we need more content to address the different audiences as new learning personas? It's a really good question, Adrian. So the answer is no. Like, let's say I'm an employee in your company and you've just bought a financial system. And depending on what my role is, I only need to learn a certain portion of that system. If it's an HR platform for all your employees, just imagine your individual employees who have no direct reports need to learn a certain portion of it. Managers need to learn another portion of it. So role plays a big role in terms of determining how much you need to learn. None of us need to know 100% of the software. So one of the benchmarks and bedrocks and definitions of a digital adoption platform is that it is role-based. So based on who you are, appropriate learning content is sent to you. In the example where I'm an employee in your company, I log in, you have an HR platform. Now, all I need to know is how to enter all my data in, order my laptop, order my system, etc. That's all I need to know week one. That's all I learn week one. Then as I move along in the system, now I'm 30 days in, I have to set my objectives for the quarter. Again, this digital adoption platform will guide me based on my role. So really important, because that's one of the things that classroom-based training doesn't take into account.
Right.
Yeah, really good one from Roxanne. How often are you seeing dApps positioned specifically as learning technology? Is there different positioning you see within some companies? It's incredibly important. So if you look at, Roxanne, just the basic benefits, right? One is you've got to onboard and train people. If your app is already up, you'll have support tickets, etc. on it. Now, the other benefit is you're creating all this training content, right? Slides, videos, etc. All of that becomes outdated fast. And you need to find a way to keep all that updated and have that sort of benefit coming through as well. So if we look at the reasons why people buy a digital adoption platform, learning is one of them. It is not necessarily solely positioned as learning, but sometimes the early value proposition is found in learning. I'll give you a really good example. So one of our customers bought us for onboarding, training their employees. The last statement the sales enablement person made to me was, using digital adoption for onboarding and training is just scratching the surface. I use it whenever I want to change any behavior of any particular role. So here are a few examples. This person was in sales enablement. They have 400 products. She says, at any given time, I want to promote one over the other. And there is no way I have to do it. The other way would be I send an email and that gets lost. No one remembers. But if I can, for a sales rep, while they are selecting one of the products relevant to them, show them something in the application that promotes one product and proves to them that this product will result in them making more money and the company doing better, that's a win. So if you take that mindset and you, Roxanne, take that across any application in your HR system, the big one is performance reviews and objectives. They're never done on time. People have to be reminded. All of that can occur in the flow of work with the digital adoption platform. The problems that one can solve are very varied, even within the same application. Do you have any tips or suggestions for helping legacy employees who are afraid of adapting to this new normal? Um, I'll be honest, even though I don't know where my personal technical proficiency is, but while I'm working every day, I often see things where, hey, I know there's a better way to do this. And I put it on a list, and maybe 15 to 20 minutes on a Sunday, I was like, all right, I'm going to do some Google search to try and get better. So I don't know. It's a personal thing. And Amy, you want to share anything on that? How do you change that with some employees?
I think that's a great question, and I think that there are some employees that you're not going to change. There's some people that are willing, and you have to create that desire. I mean, it goes back to the whole change management thing, the ADKAR approach. So you've got your acknowledgement, your desire, and the knowledge and the assessment. So employing a solid change management approach, getting someone like that's a resistor involved in a pilot team, giving them some incentive, helping them understand what's in it for them. If there is somebody that's objective and they need to see numbers, and helping them understand what the metrics are behind the change has often worked for us as well. It is definitely a change management approach when you're moving somebody from a legacy system, though, to a newer system and trying to employ any kind of behavior change. Years ago, even when we've changed claim systems, we had people that were sitting at their desks crying, and that was not what our intention was at all. And we moved them through it with very gentle learning for them and helping them understand the big picture. But it's a great question, and I think that if we could solve that, we could retire.
Stefan, there's a really interesting L&D concept you all probably know that I was recently introduced to, called fixed mindset versus growth mindset. And the fixed mindset folks think intelligence is capped, fear of failure, fear of not doing it right. And the growth mindset is the opposite of that. And the research goes on to say that if a company believes in a growth mindset, you will convert people from fixed to growth if you show them that things can be learned, and freedom to fail is a cultural tenet. Amy, there are a few good ones for you. I'll state them. Okay. What would you say is the ideal hybrid split between in-person and virtual? And then which virtual training tools and/or technologies did you find most effective?
The what's the right split, I think, is really individual to each company, and what the tolerance is and what the culture is for each of those enterprises. But even before the pandemic century, from a learning perspective, we knew we needed to go more to that virtual. We have alternative work environment associates that work from their homes pre-pandemic, and we have offices across the country. I don't know how to put a percent on is like what's the right number of hybrid. I think it depends on the content and the learning and the culture of the company, and that's going to be very individual. And what was the second part of that, Visby? Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. The second part was which virtual training tools or technologies did you find most effective?
Well, we're still going through that. We're still trying to figure all that out. We started with Zoom as a platform. We've gone to Microsoft Teams. I'll tell you that what's really helped us the most and started this pre-pandemic, really escalated as we're in the pandemic and trying to move all of a lot of our learning to the virtual world and to a digital adoption platform. The performance support and working with WhatFix, frankly, has been huge for us as we get through the 5 moments of need, and understanding getting people the resources and the tools that they need at the time that they need them, which is when they're in their work environment. From a Century perspective, we work with everything that we do is technology based, and we're constantly enhancing and changing. So providing the resources right there. I think that this is one of the slides we have later on is really we're evaluating the ecosystem, the learning ecosystem, and what do we have available to us? Where do we want to be? So we're in that transformational piece too of trying to figure out really what are all the tools that we need, what are our technology gaps, and how do we fill those so that we can understand what that right percentage is of in-person events or in-person learning versus that whole the virtual learning events that we need to accomplish as well.
There's one, Amy, earlier one that be great to get your feedback
Mm-hmm.
on, which is what are some ways for individual organizations to gather the data necessary to measure the effectiveness of virtual learning?
Yeah, that's a great question too, and I think measuring learning has been one of the things that we've been really working hard at. We have a metrics analyst on our team that helps put us to or helps put together some of this information. So we have been working hard at measuring time to proficiency, and we want to reduce that time for our business partners. We look at the number of clicks that people, how many times they're accessing a learning event or a learning asset. How far are they getting through it? And then we're looking at the key performance indicators from our business partners and understanding really what they need to get somebody proficient. And then we measure against that. How if it took somebody last year, it took somebody 6 months to get proficient to be a claim rep one. We're looking at measuring that, what that looks like now. And based on the learning that we've provided, can we get them to 4 months to be proficient? I wish we had our metrics guy online here with us because we have an analyst that does this full time for us on our learning team. We're very fortunate in that regard. We do everything from measure the clicks, how far people are getting into learning and what that means for their job role as well. Yeah.
There's a related one, Amy, which is as a teacher presenter in person, I'm easily able to determine engagement, but I struggle virtually. How can you tell if they are into it? I'd say one thing is have a chat with
Yep.
Q&A in it, and you can tell. But any other thoughts?
I think that the polls work. We do a lot with breakout rooms. We are constantly pulling people into breakout rooms and trying to get activities or something that's engaging, and then having people come back. And that speaks to flipping that classroom. So that's not that delivery of content, that fire hose of information that's coming at people. Flipping the classroom is simply, having the learner become more the facilitator. It is having people, giving them a concept and having them come back and report out to other folks that are there. But we found breakout rooms to be really successful and improving the engagement and keeping people involved in the conversation that's going on at that particular moment too.
Yeah. There's a great one from Mike that I love. Some global regions are very focused to develop interpersonal relationships through in-person exchanges. Virtual learning does not meet that. And I'll set it up, Amy, and then be great to get your response. So I was recently introduced to another theory around low context and high context cultures. And low context cultures are cultures where you're very succinct, you're to the point, you develop relationships fast, you get things done, you learn things, and you move on. High context cultures are ones that are the opposite of all that. Have to meet interpersonally, have to figure out who you are before you start working together. So we're very low context in the US, and Japan and many other countries are very high context. And there's obviously a lot in the middle. But Amy, do you have any experience globally on how to deal with that?
Just a little bit, but I think this again is individual to the person, individual to the company, to the enterprise, and what that culture looks like too. I don't have much to add to that, Visby, though, honestly, because I think this is so individualized, and I think that interpersonal relationship we've had to work harder at when it comes to working in the virtual or learning in the virtual environment. Our company requires cameras on. I mean, we make sure that people are engaged, and there's certain circumstances where you need to have the camera off. When we were early on in the conversation, I was afraid my dog was going to hop in here, and he might still. But there's certain circumstances where we have to deal with. But I think that there's a way to keep people engaged and still have those interpersonal connections. I've hired somebody fully remote. I've never met the young man in person that we hired, but I feel like I have a connection with him. We meet every single week. I try to have conversations that aren't just about professional environment, but I try to get to know him personally. I don't think we need to be face to face in order to get those connections.
Yeah. Really good one, Mike. You've got us all thinking. I think that hybrid split will be varied by country for that reason. It'll also be varied based on how comfortable it is to work from home. We're at the extreme level of comfort here, others might not be. So lots to think about there. There's one comment for our hosts that the polls are closing too quickly and people aren't able to upvote it, just as an FYI. Then there's a good set of questions around digital adoption, one around how will it navigate through multiple platforms, one around automated curation of learning. I don't fully understand that piece, Carl, but I'll answer both. And there's another one around, is it a browser extension or add-on? Is that how it interacts with the application? So all three, all digital adoption. The first one is a really good one, Evan. So one of our great use cases for onboarding is a new employee joins, and typically you would get a range of PDFs, and worst case, you print it out, have to write stuff in it, and order your things through there. So the onboarding flow that many companies use when they deploy digital adoption is you get an email. It has very little in it, but a few links that guide you through the key things you need to do. So that link will take you into your HR platform. That HR platform will make you enter your information, life insurance benefits, all the stuff you need, personal info. Then once you've done enough for that particular day, then that same flow with Whatfix overlay will guide you through your computer ordering tool, your mobile ordering tool, etc. The same flow will then guide you back into if you're a seller, your Salesforce application. If you're finance, your finance app to get registered there. So the answer is yes. The flows can be created to navigate through multiple applications, and that's a really common use case in cases that are very complex on onboarding. You could, again, coming back to one of the earlier questions, I think it was Roxanne, which is, what can you do with Adapt? We have call centers that use us to solve queries faster with a digital overlay on the application than they would otherwise. So they're live on the app, and they're going through claims adjustment and things like that in the application live with us guiding them. 50-step processes that can traverse through multiple apps and branches as well, Evan. So if you pick A, you go down this branch. If you pick B, you go down another branch. Yes, Joseph, there's many ways it can work. One way is through a browser extension. When you've purchased a third-party product, it's often through a browser extension. If you're building your own product, then that same script can exist in your product itself. So there are many public instances of Whatfix where we can get them to you easily, where you can just go in and see our overlays on it on many public sites. That obviously doesn't require you to have a browser extension. So it depends. And then automated curation of learning. I don't know exactly, Carl. Amy, can you interpret that a little bit as to what that means?
Automated curation of learning. I know I'm going to need a little bit more information about what that question is.
Yeah. Actually, Carl, you brought up one really good point, which is, all right, so where does the digital adoption content come from? It does need to be created, but it also, the vendors also have templates, right? Now, even though in your HR system, the way you do objectives and performance reviews is the way another company will do it, but there will be templates, etc., to go in and be able to do that. But the digital adoption platform also learns where and what people are doing, where they're getting stuck, to suggest new content to create. But we'll take that offline as well. How do you do hybrid when you're in the classroom and virtual, Amy?
Oh, yeah, we're still learning that one too. We are still fully remote. So that's one of the big conversations that we're having currently, is what that's going to look like for us going forward. Part of it comes down to the technology. What do we have? We have our learning studios, which are our training rooms. And what's the technology we have there? How do we continue to hit the people and get the people in the classroom? Which I think we're probably going to have, limited numbers in the classroom, as well as keep the people engaged in the field. I think a lot of it's going to look very similar to what we're doing already, and having pods of people and trying to get some breakout rooms together. But this is one of the big questions, and one of the big strategic goals that we have for 2022 is to really tackle how we do this and how we do this effectively. Because frankly, before the pandemic, we weren't effective at this. We were trying, but we know we need to get better. And I honestly, I do believe it comes down to what the technology is that we have in the classrooms, and how we're reaching out to people and how we're engaging them. And it's going to be building the content and building the learning to keep the people that are hybrid, or keep the people that are remote, not in the classroom with us, able to communicate. We need to have that two-way dialogue. And I think that even in this virtual world, we can have that two-way dialogue, and we need to keep that moving as much as possible in the future as well.
Mhm. Yeah. With the amount of info employees are needing to digest and the amount of time to do so, how are you able to create retention of learning?
Oh
So
gosh. Yeah,
maybe
go.
I'll take that first. There's
Yes.
really good Josh Berson's Learning in the Flow of Work white paper, which
Mhm.
really changed everything in my mind a little bit, which took away that exact concept, Israel, which is that we just can't, no mind can take it all in. 300 apps, an individual employee has to learn 14 technologies, Gartner's statistic. There is no way we can do it. The only way we can do it is to do it in the flow of work. The forgetting curve indicates, I forget what the percent is, but some large 70+% is forgotten within the first week. So in the flow of work seems to be the touted concept. Amy, anything to add?
No, I think you said it very well. That's really what performance support is about. It's getting away from those in-person training events where you're fire hosing all of that information at people, and it's like 90% within the first week, people forget that information. It's just too much, and really having the uh, understanding that moment of need, understanding what people need in the flow of work and in the flow of the work environment and their daily tasks. There are some things that we have to do that maybe we only do twice a year that we're expected to learn. And in the old days, in the past, and we're guilty of this too, we had that binder full of information that when somebody had a question, they'd be flipping through the binder, or they'd be standing up and talking to their neighbor about how to simply do a task. The whole digital adoption platform puts that information right at the fingertips so that you don't have to remember all of that from that event. Less events, more information at your fingertips from a DAP.
Yeah, I just want to say best Q&A session ever. And we do. What do you think, Amy? It's just awesome questions,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
how much they're proliferating. Carl, thank you for your follow up. So Carl's follow up is that they get it from sites like Pluralsight, Udemy, etc. And I'm assuming, Carl, you'll also have a lot of content that you create yourself, knowledge bases, etc. So what a DAP can do, our DAP can do, is we can actually search wherever you have content related to that system and bring that in. So I'll give you our example. I won't give you a Pluralsight Udemy example, but I'll give you a general one. Let's say you're in, again, an HR system, and you want to search for something that is not in the system itself. You can search for it in the digital adoption platform, and then it will bring in content from a knowledge base, a SharePoint, a Pluralsight, etc. And it'll bring in content in there in the app. Again, solving the fact that you need your learning inside the solution rather than to remember it from a third-party video, etc. So video is a great use case for learning, and we'll bring that video in the app. And then there's also one more component, Carl, which I look forward to showing you, is where when you create content with Whatfix, you will also create multiple versions of it. And this is highly valued by learning and development. One version is, of course, of interactive contextual flow in the app. Another is a FAQ that you can put in your knowledge base. So now your knowledge bases are never out of date. You will have a slideshow version of a walkthrough. You will create a video, will create an article, etc. All that, job aids, PDFs, all of that, all always up to date because you'll have a single source of authoring. So that's a big win in the integration play there, Carl. But look forward to telling you more. It's a good one for you, Amy. Are you implementing LRS technology or XAPI to help track learner behavior and offer
Yes.
up more personalized tracks? Yeah.
Yeah, we're in the process of doing both. We have XAPI in place, and we're looking at how we integrate more with an LRS, a learning record store, so that we can make our metrics more robust. It's one of the that question earlier was a great question, and it's one of the things that we need to prove. The governance model, or the model that we're set up for Century University, is a governance model. So all of these metrics and anything that we measure through XAPI or through an LRS through the record store, we try to package and give to our executives so that they understand where we're using our resources, number one, but how the learners are learning. And this helps us when we're trying to do the ROI of a digital adoption platform and spending the money, and how it's helping our associates / employees move forward. So We have an in-house XAPI that one of our developers was able to do for us. And we're looking at what, even from our LMS standpoint, from a learning management system, moving more to an LXP, the learner experience platform. An LMS is that push out of learning. We want the LXP platform so that we can be more of a pull, that people are able to search. And I think that the digital adaption platform is going to help us with that, along with the XAPI and LRS aspects as well.
Yeah, and I'll add, Judith, the digital adoption platforms like ours, we have the ability to, when you create a walkthrough, it can become a SCORM compliant module inside your LMS. And through XAPI integration, if someone completes that task, let's say completed my onboarding task of ordering a computer, and that was a module in your LMS, that person will be graded in the LMS as having completed that task because they've done it in your digital adoption platform in the application. Related to that is a question from Chelsea. With your onboarding flow, do you see new hires completing these tasks or still not completing? There's one functionality, Chelsea, that digital adoption platforms have, which is validation. And you can turn it on if you want that completely done. So if you want to make sure that they complete this task, and if not, they can't go on to the next one. So someone who wants to schedule their PTO before they've ordered a laptop, you can prevent that from happening to ensure they complete it. So there's a functionality that ensures the important ones are taken care of. Hands-on customer service work has a great number of learners not proficient in digital classroom. What methods or tools do you feel are best for such a computer illiterate demo? Any additional thoughts on that, Amy, outside of
Can
what
you
we
read that?
talked?
I'm sorry. Could you read that one
Yeah.
again?
The hands-on customer service individuals are a lot of people, and they're not proficient in digital classroom. What can we do to train them, given their very computer illiterate demographic to start with?
Sure. We've really gone to that application state. So we provide activities that are hands-on, even in the virtual environment. Get them engaged with the hands-on and make them practice. That's the only way that people are going to learn, and that's going to provide them with the retention piece of it. And then the digital adoption platform, of course, then helps them through that. So if we need, there's a foundational piece that they need to learn, and we can do that application and that hands-on practice. And then we provide them the tools and the resources as they go through that system so that they can learn bits and pieces. We've tried to chunk out the learning. So instead of saying, here's everything you need to know to be good at your job, we say, here's the first piece that you need to know. Here are the foundational pieces. And it might be just 5 pieces of information that they need to get good at. And then we start building on it. Okay, now you're good at this. Let's give you the next chunk. So we really try to chunk out the learning and chunk out the material so that it isn't overwhelming. And then we provide the performance support so that they have the questions or have the answers at their fingertips when they come up and they're in their moment of their work as well.
Yeah. Marianne, FedRAMP, not yet, though we've got our first federal customers without it. And there's something we have around that, but we are going to be FedRAMP as well. There's one really good one, Amy, that just pops this all up several levels higher. And it says that how do we get managers internally to give the appropriate importance of training or the ability to upsell, et cetera? So how do we do that as an L&D team?
Oh, that's another really good question too. And this speaks to the culture. What we found is that when we went to the highest level that we could in our organization, which we were very fortunate that we had the support for our learning organization from our CEO and from our board of directors, and had helped get some of that to filter down. So it comes to that culture piece where if the executives or your higher ups are on board with learning and understand the importance, so getting to them first. And managers and the executives are more concerned about the objective information, so helping them understand what the metrics are behind learning, and if you can talk about the learning design of 5 moments of need, if you have a learning organization within your organization, getting some of that objective information, learning how to measure that time to proficiency. How do you measure that? And we talked about this a little bit before, but can you find the metrics to say this is what they need to be proficient on the desk, and it's 6 months, and we can reduce that time to 4 months. Getting the culture and the mind shift so that training or learning isn't punitive. Sometimes we say, well, you failed this. We've got something in place in our company that says you hit the phishing campaign too many times, therefore you have to do this learning. And we're trying to shift away from that culture. Also, getting your managers involved, helping them understand what that engaged learning atmosphere is. Helping them, having them be your subject matter experts as you build out some learning pieces so that they're a part of it and they can understand and see the flow of work and the importance of the learning aspect of it too. But I think a lot of it does come down to the metrics and the objectives and helping them understand what's in it for them and how it can improve their associates' lives and their own lives going forward as well.
Yeah, there was someone recently said this statement to me, and it applies sort of. So they said, when it comes to enablement, training, learning, go where the eyeballs are. And what they meant was, yeah, I complained that things are coming through email, but people aren't enabled through it. And what they meant was go to where people spend time. So one is, of course, depending on who you are, which software do you spend the most time with? You spend it on your email. Everyone does that. We spend it on other things, and find where it's related to that, and that's where you want to interrupt them for learning. I'll share with you what's happened to me internally. So I find certain learning modules that I think are important for our team. And our learning and development person just scours through our LinkedIn Learning subscription and creates very bite-sized content. Again, so circumventing the issue, it takes too long, 2-minute things. I had one on presenting, on discovery, or things like that. And then we send it out. And then senior management also promotes it and says, hey, we've got this for a reason. Presentation skills aren't up to par. Please go through it. The results in analytics are still not compelling. And so now the next step that we've decided on and need to implement is that we're going to take 15 minutes of everyone's time every week. That 15 minutes is going to have about 10 minutes of LinkedIn Learning in it, just as a start. That's just general continuous learning because it enhances all our brains and our net worth, and have it at a scheduled time and the same course. So I have this idea, Amy, it'd be great to get your feedback, because let's say now it's a presentation skills workshop, and at 4:00 on Friday, the whole company is going through it. Now in our communication channel, we want to see how much it is discussed, right? So we'll go through it. It's 10 minutes are up. Hey, here's what I liked about it. Here's what I didn't. I love learning this. I love learning that. And now there's at least a little bit of where the eyeballs are and going in there. So schedule where eyeballs have to be. Everyone should do it at that time. Everyone should discuss it. And there was some controversy. Oh, should it be the same course or different ones? And I was saying, let's do the same, because whatever else we've tried isn't getting that required traction. Thoughts?
I think it's a great concept and really interesting. I wouldn't do it at 4:00 on a Friday though.
No.
I know, I'm just teasing.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great concept, and I'm going to use that. Go where the eyeballs are, because I think it does make a lot of sense, and I think it's worth a shot. And I think the concept is awesome. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. Jeff, how do these bits process guidance show up in an application? So just from an end user standpoint, your thousands of employees, they'll log into an application. They won't log into WhatFix at all. As they've logged into an application, WhatFix will know who they are, their role, and where they are in the application, and then guide them through certain steps. So let's take the example of, let's take another example. I'm a finance person, and I've logged into my ERP system, and I need to know how to pay a vendor. So because I'm in accounts payable, they know my role. WhatFix knows my role. And now I'm in the pay tab of my ERP. WhatFix knows I'm there as well and says, do you want to navigate through paying a vendor? And then step by step guiding that person. So if step one is as basic as click here, click pay, that'll happen. Once that's done, WhatFix interactively will go to the next step. We even automate certain steps that require no decision. So for example, let's say in this same example I gave, all those steps are 5 of them are navigation, and 1 of them is who is the vendor. That's it. So what we'll do is just navigate automatically in the background through all those 5 steps. Just bring up the interface that asks for the vendor name and then the dollar amount, and then you can pay them. So making people do more in the application, yet spending less time. So less time doing mundane things that don't require a decision.
Having the information at their fingertips, right when they need it. Sorry, that's
no. Please, can you say that again, Amy?
Having the information at their fingertips when they need it. That's the key.
Yeah, absolutely. just-in-time learning in the flow of work. And I'm not sure, Jeff, if you are asking that at the end user level or technically. Technically, depending on the application, it's either a browser extension or in the header of the code of the application. Generally fairly straightforward processes on how they show up, but no separate login, no separate solution, etc. for them.
It's seamless, honestly. People don't realize that they're in a digital adoption platform. It is just kind of the help, and it is the help that they need, or the resources that is walking them through a process right in the day.
Yeah. Carl, and no need to stop, Carl. The questions are awesome. Yes, on reporting, not just reporting of what people have done with the walkthroughs that are overlays, but reporting on what people are doing in the application without the overlays to show you where they're getting stuck so that you can create walkthroughs on it. Search within the application. What are people searching for and was it successful or not? Again, analytics where people are having trouble, where they need help, and where you can create more content.
And there's analytics too that stop it. So if there's a 6-step process and everybody's stopping, or the majority are stopping at step 3, then we need to evaluate that and do what do we need to do? Does it just need to be a 3-step process? Do we need to get rid of 4, 5, and 6? Do we need to break that apart? How do we adapt that to what the learner needs there too?
Yeah. IT overhead to keep it running? No, Jeff. So the integration with IT is just on the extension or the code inside the application. And that's one time at the start. It only has to be done once. We go through IT security fairly seamlessly, etc. as well. So yes, on learning more, absolutely. Who can we contact? You can contact me, Vispi, V-I-S-P-I at whatfix.com, or I'm sure there's a better way that we have here. What are your current concerns? Oh, it's Manali asking Alexandra. Okay, I don't know if there's a way for Alexandra to verbally respond. Good. I think that sums it up. And I know our hosts have said we can go over a little bit. So my suggestion here is what I'll do is shall we move forward from here? And since a lot of questions were on DAP, shall we go there, Amy, and show everyone how you're using it?
Sure. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
So let's do that. We talked a lot about what a digital adoption platform is, and we covered that quite a bit. So let's go to here. Go ahead, Amy.
All right. So from a Sentry perspective, and I'm going to go through this pretty quick, just simply time, and you've heard a lot about how we're using it already. But from a Sentry perspective, our focus has been empowering our employees and our customers to get more out of their applications and online portals, respectively, so that again, we don't have to, or we've got the information at their fingertips, so that they have a self-guided tour of what they need to accomplish. Just a little bit about Sentry. You can read the bullet points. I don't have to read them to you, but we are very proudly a Fortune 1000 company now with over 4,000 employees. We are technology based. We leverage multiple applications to manage our internal business processes. We have an online portal for our customers and our policy holders and our to submit claims. So drivers of better technology outcomes. I mean, we've talked a lot about this already. I feel like with all those great questions that you guys brought forward, we've talked a lot about better user onboarding, the moment of need support, and learner-centric philosophy. And that's really what Sentry U is built on, is that whole learning-centric philosophy of flipping the classroom, getting less fire hose content during a training event, and helping people understand how to facilitate better learning and have that information at their fingertips. And I know I keep saying that, but that's really what it's about, is giving people what they need at the time that they need it. Driving software adoption and improving efficiency with WhatFix. We partnered with WhatFix in 2018, so we started this journey with them prior to the pandemic, and it's just escalated. We have WhatFix fully embedded in 6 applications, and these are employee-facing and customer-facing applications. We've got a couple on the horizon that we're working towards right now. This is impacting over 2,000 employees, 600 agents, and 75,000 customers. It's a pretty big impact with people.
Yeah, just the one thing I'd point out is there are different types of software users. It could be products you purchase that are used by employees, or you're building that are internally and they're used by employees, or it could be products that you have built externally. It could be your website. It could be anything that you're selling as well. So anything that is a software application, you can find a use for a digital adoption platform on it.
Mm-hmm. Personalized learning at scale. So we use their in-app guidance and their help content. Like half the time they don't know that they're in what fix necessarily because it's an embedded platform on our systems. And this helps with, those 5 moments of need of some upskilling and helping with somebody that needs to do something new, a new skill or a skill that's going to be changing. It's contextual, self-serve support 24/7. We don't encourage our folks to work 24/7, but we do have people, the customer support, that work overnight, and it's not always the right thing to do or the best thing to do to have them wait to answer a question or figure out how to do something when they're looking through a binder, or wait till 8 the next morning when somebody is in the office that can help them. The existing knowledge repositories are right there within the application, and Visby talked through some of that. You can search through a lot of those pieces, and it's all, again, right there for our associates to walk through.
Yeah, this is just a sort of example, right? Right there, while they're at the driver's license format. Now, there are a few things you can use WhatFix for here. One is, what are all the different formats by state? So here, it could link to a format, which is what Amy is doing here, or you could even search in our box, in the blue box here, and it could come up with, hey, here's the format for a particular state, etc. And then you could even validate this field. Coming back to an earlier question, how do you ensure people go through the walkthroughs and say, hey, if it's not of a certain format, you can't enter it in. So we can correlate it to be a certain format based on the state, etc. So there's a lot you can do on any individual field, any of these objects. That's how you create the content. You select the object, then you decide what should the path be. It could be just, hey, here's a message, or it could be one of many steps going through a platform.
We utilize the pop-up notifications when we have announcements, something new that's happening, a reminder. Sometimes we just use it to spotlight something that's happening or spotlight a person. So continuous user feedback collection, we do this through informal and through formal surveys. What's working, what's not working, and all those metrics behind the scenes that Visby was talking about as well. We're constantly pulling the metrics to understand which flows or which task lists people are using and referencing, and which ones can we put more towards the back burner. I think that this slide is probably one of the most impactful, so that people understand really when you're talking about how to convince somebody of ROI or bring the managers on board or your executives on board. This value to the business, this was us. Resources saved in content developers' time, support staff time, and salaries over 1 year was roughly $950,000. We reduced our content creation time by about 40%, and we reduced our support queries by about 100. This was a couple years ago, and we have continued to refine this and continue to get better at this, and we've continued to partner and learn more about how to do the performance support in a more impactful way. So these are great numbers to share.
Yeah, I'll just share a little bit about the content creation time. I touched on this earlier, but you don't, we integrate with your knowledge base, your learning management system, etc. So you can just create content in WhatFix, and we'll create a version of it that shows up as an LMS module or a video or a knowledge base article. That's that reduction. And the biggest one is, of course, that feeling when a new employee has come in and is looking at some training data that's outdated. That's just the terrible experience that you cannot avoid. It's just impossible to do that. So that's this is a good way to sort of go through that.
So what's our path ahead from a Century perspective, which is what I'm speaking to right now, is to continue to evaluate and adjust our learning ecosystem with focus on that hybrid work and learning environment. You had some questions about how we're doing that, and this is still a work in progress for us. Boy, I wish I had all the answers, and if somebody does, please share them with me too, so that we can continue to work forward in a positive manner. Our focus also is on enabling personalized learning paths through the learner-centric approach, coupled with the right technology. Says easy, does hard, can be expensive, but we're continuing down that personalized learning path, which is what people are really asking for. And we're developing a roadmap of all of our systems and a strategy to ensure that we're weaving learning into the everyday lives of our associates, because we don't want training to be just an event. We really want it to be a seamless part of what their working life is, whether it's their personal life or their professional life. How do we integrate that into their lives, into their work, especially, so that it is the information at their fingertips and it's not again, pulling that binder off the shelf or making a phone call or trying to figure out how to do something, especially when you're talking to somebody on the phone or you need to get a payment out or whatever the case may be. So one of our big strategic initiatives from a Century U perspective, one of the phrases that we use all the time is weaving learning into the everyday lives of our associates.
Great. Let me do this and go back to questions and see what there was, since we've gone over by almost 5 minutes and we still have 260 people on. So let me see if I can get the questions going. Do you see them by any chance, Amy?
I do not. Nope.
Yeah, it disappeared for me all of a sudden. Oh, there they come. I got them. If Whatfix repackages existing content somehow disappeared, how do you verify the source? We don't quite repackage existing content. So let's take an example of that earlier example of the finance accounts payable person needing to pay a vendor. You have that content somewhere. Now that content needs to be created inside the application. So maybe you have a video or a PDF, etc. Now, when you're creating that content inside the application, you will be creating it in your system. So let's say this is your finance system over here. Step one is to click on Pay. The Whatfix authoring platform for the authors, which is systems trainers, will show up and you'll click on Pay, and then a balloon tip will come up as you're authoring it. So you are authoring it in the application itself and that'll ensure that path is accurate and not outdated. And then while we author it, as I said earlier, we'll create job aids, PDFs, etc., all of the accurate path to pay a vendor because it's accurate in the system. Let's see, our host warned us that we should finish by 10 minutes over. So I'm just seeing if there are any left. I think we've got them all. Actually, there's one. I don't believe I've asked this. Do you see an increase in understanding skill development in understanding and skill development if you first show a video demo or explain an internal process before actually logging in or using an in-app guided tool? Let's see. It's actually, I'll answer on my side, Amy. It's actually a really good question. So one of the things we do, Denise, is, as I said, is you create the in-app tool, the in-app walkthrough, and then a video is created. Many of our customers have said, and that video is usually created automatically for your video repository, if you have a video repository. That was our purpose. But many have said, I want that video to show up in the application itself, which of course we can bring in, and I want a user to see the video first and then do the application. Many people have asked for that, and you're validating that. So yes, it's possible. I don't know increased understanding or skill development if you do that. Amy, would you like to take that?
I think just very briefly, it's that show, tell, do. So it's showing somebody what they need to do, telling them how to do it, and then letting them apply it. I think that speaks very well to that concept is also. So where it's possible, the show, tell, do always works. Or always, I shouldn't ever use that term, but most often will work. Sometimes it's not possible with the tell piece, but I think that you can't go wrong with showing somebody what you expect or what you want or what the behavior changes that you're trying to go after, and then having them apply that. That application, though, is critical. They have to do it themselves in order to accomplish the task, or in order to understand what the behavior change is, which is what learning is all about.
Yeah, really good question, because obviously it does, I would say, given we've been asked for it and people have deployed it in that way. I'm trying to see. I'm trying to think. No, I don't see any more, and I can see that we have to drop off now because you're welcome, Leanne. We have to drop off now because it's getting to that time where you can't be late for your next session. So just thank you so much. The interactivity and the Q&A was epic. I've done many of these. Best ever. I mean that sincerely. Amy?
Yeah, I agree. Thank you very much for allowing us the time to come in and chat. And I love the questions, and it gives me a lot to think about for the future as well. I appreciate it.
Thank you all. Bye.